Hey everyone, so today I'll be going over my Master League team for Go Battle League, and so I want to really hammer out the details of my team before releasing a video on it because I want to make sure that it works well. So in my testing from Ultra League and some Master League as well, my ranking dropped to about 2750, and with the team I was able to get back over 3000. For those that are still chasing rank 10 or just want to increase their battle rating, this may be the team for you. So I've been running Snorlax, Giratina Altered Form, and Dialga. This is kind of similar to one of the teams I ran in the preseason, except I'm running Giratina Altered Form. So I'll show you some gameplay, and throughout that, I'll discuss why I chose my team and the movesets I chose to run. So as you can see, my rating starts off at 2750, and so this is one of my first matches using my team. And so something I noticed is a lot of Giratinas these days are origin forms are running Dragon Pulse, and so that's going to do quite a bit of damage to Snorlax if you're running Superpower and Body Slam. In some situations, you can't even beat Giratina Origin in that situation, so that's a big reason why I decided to run Earthquake with my set. As well, I've seen an increased amount of Giratina Altered Form, and those actually do pretty well against Snorlax. If you're running Superpower with Body Slam, you actually can't beat a Snorlax. Or Snorlax can't beat the Giratina, so that's a big reason why I'm also running Earthquake on mine. So, something I noticed also in Master League is that it is a very bait-dependent meta, and so sometimes if you call the bait correctly or you land a bait correctly, that can determine the entire matchup. So one reason why I'm deciding to run Giratina Altered over Origin is that it is incredibly bulky, and so you can see that this Melmetal is already depowered with Superpower, so I don't even need a shield, and I can just pretty much straight farm it down. And also the ability to spam out Dragon Claws is very reliable damage that hits pretty hard against a lot of the meta, especially Giratina as well. It's not a strong finisher move, but is able to get the job done. And so right here, I'm just going to keep using Lick against this Giratina. I chose not to use a charge move because I want to get a little bit more energy after farming it down with this Giratina Altered, and I knew that their Giratina would have to expend all their energy in the process. I don't know why my opponent used Superpower there. Maybe they didn't have energy for anything else. I don't know. They should have used Rock Slide. But either way, it wouldn't have been enough anyway. So, going to the second matchup, you're probably thinking Machamp is probably a bad lead against my team, but actually Machamp is not the worst. So, because Snorlax is so bulky and Body Slam hits decent for neutral and Machamp is just kind of glassy in itself, it can't tank a lot. So, what I'm going to do right here is force this Machamp to use a shield. And so that's not a great situation, but the opponent tried to farm me down. So if they don't throw back-to-back cross chops, or not back-to-back, but if they try to farm me down with just counters, they're going to have to expend a shield. And so now I'm up a shield, and Giratina is going to resist the counter damage and cross chop. So Rock Slide will do a little bit of damage to it, but because it's so bulky, it doesn't have to worry too much about it. And now I'm going to shield this because I'm thinking it's probably a Dark Pulse, or it could potentially be a Shadow Ball as well, but I'm going to go in with my Dialga. Dialga doesn't do great against Machamp, but because Machamp is so glassy and Dragon Breath hits so hard, it's able to chunk it down right there. And then Metagross right here, not a great matchup for my Dialga, but I'm going to go try and bait, and I was able to bait out Shield because I had enough for Draco Meteor, and then now I was going to go straight for Draco Meteor, but I wasn't able to get there in time. That's totally fine though, because they expended all their energy on Earthquake, and now, or maybe not all, they farmed a little bit extra, and then now Giratina is able to clean up with Shadow Sneak. So Shadow Sneak definitely made Giratina a little more viable against a lot of the Psychics as well in this meta. And so Togekiss, another Pokemon that people might be wondering, like, how do you beat that? So a lot of people tend to lead Togekiss. And so what I do here is if a Togekiss doesn't shield and they're not running like Flamethrower, Aerial Ace might be a little tricky, but pretty sure that Snorlax can win it as long as no one's shielding on each side if they're not running Flamethrower or they hit you with an Ancient Power. But I do shield right here because now I'm able to force my opponent to shield again. Or lose the matchup. So they end up burning both their shields right here. Yeah, they're gonna they even actually farm down my Snorlax actually, which is kind of surprising. But Snorlax is because it's so tanky, it can just throw out Body Slams. And right here, even though I'm taking super effect damage from Charm, I'm just gonna straight farm down with Shadow Claws. This puts up a lot of energy for Giratina Altered, and which means I'm able to spam out a ton of moves against their Giratina. Even if Dialga is gonna do quite a bit in neutral damage, and now I'm gonna pull out my Dialga, and yeah, this is not a great matchup for Melmetal, but I'm not going to shield. If it is a superpower, it won't be enough to take me out. But because there's just Rock Slide bait, I chose not to shield. Again, another Rock Slide. What I was really looking for is for them to use superpowers so I could farm down their Melmetal with my Giratina, but at this point, because they hit me with 2 Rock Slides, I might as well just drop the Draco Meteor, and then now I can farm it down with just Shadow Claws, and then hit my opponent with Dragon Claw. So I figured this was honest swim, but might as well shield it anyway because I need to land just this 1 Dragon Claw to win it. So that's how you deal with Togekiss in the lead. So Togekiss in the back is a slightly trickier move. So what I do against Kyogre leads usually is I try to time it so I can absorb a Surf on my Giratina. And because this water is resisted, I'm going to waste a bunch of energy on Kyogre and then also hopefully be able to generate a little energy for the next thing. So Togekiss in the back, definitely a little trickier to deal with because it is going to chunk away at my Giratina. But if you can see, Shadow Sneak does a ton of damage, and I didn't even start that battle off with full health with Giratina. So on even shields, Giratina with Shadow Sneak actually does quite a bit of damage if it goes unshielded by Togekiss. Right here, I'm just going to farm down Togekiss with Licks because I know that they won't have enough energy to take me out with, or hit me with Charge Move because they just expended it. And then now I'm going to spam out Body Slams against this Kyogre. And then was able to draw a shield actually, which is kind of nice. And then I'm going to be able to bring in my Dialga to kind of close it off. And so that's what I'm going to do right here. I know they can't get to Blizzard in time. At this point, I am up a shield, but I have way less health against this opposing Dialga. So it's going to put me in a slightly tighter matchup than I like. But I'm going to just try to farm down right there and then hit this Kyogre with Iron Head. It's going to be resisted, but it's still going to do a decent amount of damage. And then now I can just straight lick down this Kyogre without having to even expend any energy because they're so low already. So that's kind of how you deal with Togekiss in the back. And so as I'm showing these matches, they're actually progressively as I gain more and more points. So some of the matchups might get harder and harder depending on the opponents. So this is a tricky situation. Machamp in the lead. Again, I showed that earlier. Not that big of a deal actually to deal with because I could just straight farm it down with Shadow Claws with Giratina after. But here's the tricky part too. And Jingles is a really great player too, so I knew this was going to be an interesting matchup. He has actually a Togekiss in the back, so you're about to see in a second. That's where it gets tricky. So I would say my team is really balanced and has a lot to handle almost everything in the meta, but this is probably impossible to win. So Machamp lead with a Togekiss in the back, and so he's gonna hit me with a Charge Move right here. I'm going to shield just to maintain some switch advantage right here, or just maintain that I win this matchup. And so I'm like, I don't know what's in the back, and it turns out so Machamp actually comes in to throw a Cross Chop. I'm going to have to shield this for sure. And then Togekiss in the back. And so even though I'm able to land this Iron Head, it's going to do quite a bit of damage. He actually was able to shield it, so it didn't even matter. And then with Shadow Sneaks, it's not going to be enough. That Charm Drain is going to come in really quick and take me out too. So if they're running both Machamp and Togekiss, unlikely that you'll win that situation, but you know, that's not too super common. So definitely something to think about though. So it's not like an unbeatable team by any means. So in this matchup again, another Togekiss lead. Like I said, almost everyone tends to run Togekiss in the lead. There might be some videos out there that say Togekiss in the back might be important, so that might change over the course of the next few days. But for the most part, that's usually what I see. And then again, if they're running Ancient Power, it does like almost nothing, so it's not even worth shielding. And this opponent doesn't even shield, so I was able to even potentially flip this matchup, but they don't shield. And so they choose not to shield, so now I have switch advantage, which is kind of nice. And then they bring in the Giratina. I'm going to bring in my Dialga because it's going to do a little better than the altered form. And I'm going to try to shield right here. Most people tend to try to drop a Shadow Ball before bailing out. I have no idea what they have in the back at this point. I'm thinking it must be something weak to Dialga if they're staying in and shielding their Giratina. So at that point, I choose to shield as well because I'm thinking they really want to get rid of my Dialga, so that's why I'm going to expend both shields. Turns out to be a Garchomp. So Garchomps, they're not super common, but they are, you'll see a decent amount of them. And so Garchomps are not that great against this team, so I'm not too worried. So right here, Giratina Ultra Form, going to be able to do super effective damage with Dragon Claws, and it's also so bulky too, it could tank even an Outrage. So you're going to see right here, my opponent's going to use an Outrage, and it's going to do a lot of damage, but that's still a decent amount of chunk left of health for Giratina Ultra. And now I have enough energy for Dragon Claw, able to take out their Origin Form. So that's kind of how you handle Garchomp. It's not too bad against this team for the most part. Okay, so Melmetal lead. This happens a lot actually. I see a ton of Melmetal leads, and a lot of them will drop Superpower and bail, or they'll try to bait with Rock Slide. So that's kind of a tricky situation. And like I said, Master League meta is very bait dependent, and so that's a big reason why it's a very tricky matchup depending on how they play it, if they shield the Earthquake or not, etc. Usually they'll shield the Earthquake if they already dropped the superpower, because that's enough to do quite a bit of damage to them. If they haven't dropped the superpower yet, I usually don't drop my charge move, because all my charge moves are going to be doing a little less damage. It's not the worst case scenario, because like I said, Giratina Ultra Form can come in and farm down the Melmetal that's debuffed, but because they switched to Giratina Origin, I'm going to be able to just kind of take it down with just Dragon Breaths, and they're going to shield right there. We're still on even shields. My guess is they probably have a Dialga in the back. At this point, again, I'm not going to shield, and the reason is because I can farm down this Melmetal with my Giratina and not need to expend any charge moves. And again, like I said, so it's going to be a Dialga. Giratina Altered, you would think doesn't do well against Dialga because taking super effective damage from Dragon Breath, whereas these Dragon Claws are doing neutral damage to Dialga and neutral damage from Dragon Claws. But because it's so bulky and it can spam out so many charge moves, it actually does really well. Even with shields up, because it ends up forcing the opposing Dialga to have to shield essentially in a lot of situations. So they're going to shield right there, and probably a slight miscalculation because they weren't able to actually get to another charge move. And then right here, I was able to take out their Melmetal with Sliver Health. So Giratina Altered even against Dialga does pretty well. Okay, so what happens if the Togekiss shields your Snorlax? All right, so like I said, another Togekiss lead. But sometimes they'll shield it just to maintain switch advantage and have a big chunk of health left. And I believe in this matchup too, my opponent hits me with a Flamethrower. And Flamethrower is going to hurt your Snorlax a lot harder. So as you can see right there, not able to get to that last Body Slam like I usually would have if I had Aerial Ace or Ancient Power. So at this point, this is going to look a little gutsy, but I'm going to just try to Shadow Claw a lot of this Togekiss down. I do drop one Dragon Claw just because it's going to take me a while just to Shadow Claw straight, and it's going to be a lot of charm damage. But I still have a decent amount of health left. I have one shield up. This looks pretty precarious for me for the most part because I'm down a Pokemon and a half essentially. Or I guess half a Pokemon compared to them because they're already down one too. But either way, so I have a shield advantage right here, but I have less health than this Dialga. And my Dialga is actually not best buddied either. My best buddy Pokemon in this situation is actually Giratina Altered. So I tend to lose a lot of Dialga mirrors because of that, especially because most people best buddy their Dialga. But able to get to another Iron Head. And then now able to take out that Dialga. The main thing with Dialgas are they can't spam the charge moves as fast. So you can definitely kind of capitalize that. And so right there, I was able to save my shield for this Origin form and then get to another Dragon Claw in time. Because Dragon Claw is so spammy with the combination of Shadow Claw, you really can throw out a lot. And so even if it's like a half health Togekiss and you're coming in with Giratina Altered, you can still take it out and still win, which is pretty surprising, but that really just goes to show how strong Giratina Altered is. Okay, so what happens in a situation where the Machamp ends up shielding, I guess, and doesn't try to farm me down, right? So they have quite a bit of health left. I'm obviously coming in with Giratina Altered, and my opponent actually does a smart thing and switches out his Machamp because that way he doesn't get farmed as much. And I had to bring in my Dialga against their Dialga because I don't want that Dialga against their Machamp in the back. That's not a great matchup. But this is also not the best matchup too, just because it's a head-to-head Dialga matchup, and we're both just going to do a lot of fast move and charge move damage to each other. I'm going to just go straight farmer down and just drop Iron Head. Next thing coming in, I assumed it was going to be Machamp, but it actually ends up being Snorlax. So Snorlax is not the greatest situation, but like I said before, if you're not running Earthquake on your Snorlax, it's actually a tricky situation to be in because it's actually a pretty solid matchup because the Body Slam and Superpower is going to be resisted. And so this is not a great situation because Machamp actually hits pretty hard with Rock Slides. And I really need to take it out as soon as possible so I could get back to taking out the Snorlax. But you're thinking Snorlax is a pretty hard counter to Giratina's, but it really isn't. With Giratina Altered, you actually could hit it pretty hard with just straight Dragon Claws and take it out too. And so as you can see right here, I was able to take out Snorlax with Giratina, and I ended up even shielding Body Slam, so that wasn't even the best usage of shields, but I was able to overcome that matchup. So definitely something to think about if you're running Giratina Altered, and also if you're running Snorlax, because if you're not running Earthquake, that is a huge liability you'll run into. So right here, this is a situation where I am not going to shield that first superpower, and so I'm going to drop an Earthquake right here and see if I could draw a shield. I end up not drawing shield, but that's fine. So I'm going to bring in my own Dialga. And now my opponent brings in their Melmetal. Pretty solid matchup for them. And so I'm not going to shield because I know it's going to be able to survive one superpower. And then I'm going to drop the Iron Head. And at this point, too, I've got my opponent thinking, you know, I might be able to actually drop another Draco Meteor and have him a little psyched out. So sometimes you're kind of playing mind games with your opponent as well. At this point, I'm going to try to farm down with my Giratina. No reason to shield because these rock slides are debuffed. And then they come in with their own Giratina Origin. And so I'm going to switch to Snorlax. And so as you can see here, this is actually a Giratina that's running Dragon Pulse. And Dragon Pulse does quite a bit to Snorlax, actually. It's not the easiest matchup for Snorlax, so another reason why to run Earthquake. But I know that now I've drawn my opponent's energy, and almost anything most likely they're going to be running Shadow Ball with Dragon Pulse, so they can't really bait with Ominous Wind, so I knew that it was going to be a well worth it shield right there. Now I'm able to take it out with Dragon Claw right there, and then my opponent, unfortunately, has super low health on their Melmetal. I could just take it out with Dragon Claw, and then Rock Slide, even without debuffs, isn't going to do that much damage. Okay, so what happens if you go into a Dialga and Snorlax situation? So what I usually do right here is I bait, or I pretend I have an Earthquake or Superpower and bait with a Body Slam. And so when it works well, it's usually a very easy win. I'm not showing you those clips because it's not as interesting. I'm showing you a clip where I don't bait it correctly and what happens. So a lot of people won't actually shield a Melmetal if they haven't used Superpower yet. And they know that they can survive a Draco Meteor. So they drop 2 back-to-back superpowers on me. Not a big deal because now I could just farm down with just Giratina Altered. No need to shield. It's going to do very minimal damage. They also drop a superpower, which I think the only reason they would do that is so that it ensures I can't farm them even faster. Otherwise, I don't really know why they run that unless they're running Thunderbolt with their Melmetal, which might be possible. But so Snorlax, it's not the best situation, but what I'm going to do right here is go for aggressive switch and charge move. And so what I've got my opponent thinking is I might be running superpower. Whenever you do aggressive switch like that and run and drop a charge move, it actually gets people psyched out a bit. So it's kind of a way to kind of build yourself a slight advantage because you know, you usually do that, try to use a finishing move on opponent and then force them into a shield situation, which my opponent did. But little did they know, I'm not even running superpower my Snorlax, so it ends up being able to bait out a shield there, which was good. Again, Giratina Altered does quite a bit to Dialga, and at this point, I know that my opponent is likely running superpower and Body Slam. He actually ends up running Heavy Slam, which still does decent, but not as much as Earthquake would. And so right here, I know that if I build a slight enough energy lead, I can get to another Dragon Claw in time, because Heavy Slam takes a little longer to charge up to than Body Slam. And also take on my opponent there. So definitely interesting way to play out the Snorlax Dialga lead. Even if you don't get the bait, you can still overcome that matchup. Landorus, so definitely an interesting one too. Landorus actually hits kind of hard with all his charge moves. As you can see, those Snorlax are so bulky. Even that Rock Slide did a decent amount, but it doesn't have a lot of bulk on its own. And so what I'm going to do right here is, and so my opponent actually switches to Giratina Origin. I think the main reason behind this is because they want to save that Landorus for a Dialga, and if they waste out on Snorlax, it's not going to be ideal. Should I have just stayed in that matchup? I don't know. I figured I want to get my Dialga out in front because I don't want it to be matched up with their Landorus in the back. I am going to drop a Draco Meteor right here. They do smartly decide to shield. This is not the best situation for me because my Snorlax doesn't have that much health. I thought I could get to a Body Slam in time and draw a shield, but I wasn't able to. So now I just gave the Dialga a little bit more farm with doing minimal lick damage. Probably a little mistake on my end, but either way, I'm going to start spamming out these Dragon Claws. I am going to save a shield right here. Iron Head's not going to do that much damage to Dialga, so I'm going to save it for the Landorus because Landorus Earth Power does a little bit more than Iron Head I think. So I'm going to shield here. It's probably going to be a Rock Slide at this point because I'm in Rock Slide range, but either way, I know that I could charge my Dragon Claws a little bit faster than this Landorus could probably get to another Rock Slide because I had a little energy saved up from before too, and so I was able to take out the Landorus there. So yeah, Landorus not the best against my team. If you match it up with Dialga, it can be kind of tricky, but Dialga Dragon Breath also do quite a bit of damage too. Okay, so this situation, again, I'm going to show another bait fail. Like I said, the ones where I succeed, it's usually kind of an easy sweep, so it's not really interesting footage. But So right here, I end up shielding Iron Head, and then now an important thing is counting the waterfalls from the Kyogre, right? Because I think it needs about 10 waterfalls to get to a Blizzard, and so I'm counting right here and anticipating that they're going to try to hit me with a Blizzard. Their shielding also, double shielding, make me think that they're probably going to drop a Blizzard. And guess what? It's actually a Surf, right? So they probably had enough for it, but now they just need 5 waterfalls to get to a Blizzard. But like I said, Giratina, super bulky. It actually survives a Blizzard when it's coming in with near full health. So it really just goes to show how strong Giratina Ultra can be in these situations. And then so right here, I'm just going to spam out charge moves. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to another Dragon Claw, but unless my opponent is running Dragon Pulse, I should have this matchup in a pretty good situation. And my Dialga has a little less health, and unfortunately, my opponent actually dropped their Iron Head. If they just farm me down, this matchup might be a little bit closer. And then right here, I'm thinking, if it's Dragon Pulse, then my opponent has this matchup. But they're actually running the Ominous Wind Shadow Ball variants, and therefore I know that I can get to Earthquake in time. I know the Shadow Ball is going to do quite a bit of damage, but I'm going to have enough to get to Earthquake and take them out. So, like I said, Giratina Altered, super bulky, can even survive a Blizzard from a Kyogre, which is pretty impressive. And so I'm going to show you right here, this is me getting all the way back up to a little over 3,000 GBL rating. That's the team I decided to run. In my opinion, I think it's really balanced, and it pretty much has options against the entire meta. So hopefully it works as well for you as it has worked for me. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you all next time.